staff that serve them meals, but they are on their own to do their schoolwork, get themselves to school in the morning, and that kind of thing. So the teachers are people that love Jesus, and they pour their hearts into those students, training them to grow up as mature adults, but also to show them a relationship with Jesus Christ, because it is a private school, a faith-based school. They have chapel 2 to 3 times a day. And so the picture that was just up there a minute ago was their chapel is outdoors. And here they were telling the kids it's time to pray. And when you teach them in school for them to not be distracted, they tell them to pray by putting their hands over their eyes and then pray, because then you only see Jesus, you're thinking about Jesus, and you're not distracted with the other kids around you.
And the boys and girls there, they just can't tell the difference of that.
Yes, because of hygiene, to help them with hygiene when they're very young, they shave their heads, so it's kind of hard at that age. It was hard to know which ones are boys or girls, but they all wear uniforms. They wear uniforms, and so they know boys and girls, but sometimes for us it's hard to tell because they all dress very similarly and they don't have much hair when they're really young. They have limited supplies in their schools. In 2007, when I went into the school, they had very little paper, pencils, pens. There was a chalkboard with a few little nubbins of chalk, but a lot of it is oral teaching. Now they have a computer lab. One time we were able to bring computers. We brought library books, so they have a library, and so they have been able to expand over the years. Arvid's going to tell you more about other support services. I shared about the hospital and the school as a way of ministry, but there's other support services within the mission that help support the people.
One of the areas is the church. They had an old church building when we first went that was in need of a replacement. It took them several years, but they finally have now a new church building. And as part of that new church building, they started to use it when they had just some bare benches. No other equipment. One of the churches in Millbank upgraded their sound system, and they sent their old sound system with us. And they put the speakers on the stand, and they made it work. And it dramatically changed how they worshiped. If you want to see an excited African, give them a mic. They love to have a mic. They use them for their music, for their teaching. It's just a big part of their service. I have a brother that was in a wood shop in Arizona, and he built a pulpit that we broke down so we could ship it. And we took it there, and they're using that pulpit today. Also in the church, you can see some red carpet. They were really at a disadvantage because they didn't have any carpet up by the altar or down the center aisle. So one of the trips that we were there, people donated money so we could put carpet in their church. And why that's so important, during their service, when they have prayer, it's kind of like the old-fashioned service here, or in America, in that when they ask people to pray, they all come forward and they kneel in front of the altar. You know, we used to do that in America years ago. I guess our knees are bad now. But, you know, it's just traditions, and that's their tradition. So that's why the carpet was so important. And so that was a big part of their service. One other little thing in the service that's interesting, when they take their offering, they don't pass a plate. They have a basket up in front, and everyone brings their offering to the front. And it's just another way of them doing their service. Their services, they will tell you they start about 9, and they mean that, about. At 9 o'clock, there'll be a few, they'll start to sing, and as the crowd grows, they continue to sing. They'll have someone come and speak, and you think that was the message, and Diane's done, and we can all go home. Well, it's not quite that way, because that's just a teaching. Then when they're done, then they'll sing some more, then the pastor will give a message, and normally you're out by 1. guys will be there for a little while. And it's unique how in their services, even in the middle of the summer, it'll be in the upper 80s, everyone's dressed up. They have ties, they have sport coats, they're dressed to the hilt, and it's really neat. But the church is a real vital part of the community, and it's a big, big deal. Jan mentioned the farm. They have a couple hundred acres that they can farm. And when we first got there, they had 4 or 5 people with a hoe, and they were trying to plant enough product so that to feed 1,000 people a day, and of course there's no way they could do that. So we got involved in asking people to help us, and we ended up with 3 containers of farm equipment that we shipped, that was donated by different individuals in the region. We got a corn planter, we got drill, we got 3 tractors that we took there, 2 40-20s and an H farm all. Everything you needed to farm, cultivator, chisel plow, and we broke those items down. And with them, when we shipped those containers, that's how we got like the computer lab for the school. One of the schools upgraded their computer system, and they gave us the whole old computer lab, and that's how they got a computer lab in Africa. Another one, school closed, and they gave us their library for all the books. So those are the kind of things that have dramatically helped the compound as we've gone forward. As far as the farm, we packed the containers with a variety of things. And then with that, that shows the H farm all coming out of one of the containers. And it's what's unique about it, on that last picture, the fellow that driving that tractor owned one of the 40-20s. He hadn't been in church in many years, but he's a neighbor of ours in Millbank. And we said, that tractor's going to Africa. I said, you really should drive that out of the container. Next day he called me, he says, I'm going to do that. And he came and he was really touched when he saw, how the people responded, because it was so meaningful. And he's gone 3 times. And he'd never been involved in the church before, but he could see how important it was to do things for other people. We built if you go to the next slide, we took the first 2 containers and we put them 36 feet apart, and we had a carpenter in Millbank that cut all of the material, and we put it in the bottom of the container so we could build the storage unit. One of the containers they use for their supplies, seed and fertilizer and that kind of thing, and the other container is just storage for the equipment, for the supplies for the equipment. But he went over there with us, and he took 5 local people that didn't know the difference from a hammer and a saw, and they built that building in a week. So it's amazing how people come together and work together on it. Do we have the video there of the tractor? Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? One of the things that you can see some of the maize there, it's a long maturing crop. It's a white corn that they grow, and that's what they grind for their food, their basic food. One of the things that we also did while we were there, there's a fellow on a load of corn. They were hauling all the fuel an hour to farm with and for their vehicles in the back of a pickup in barrels. And we knew that was just an accident waiting to happen. So we had worked with them for a couple of years to establish a fuel station there at the compound. And not only do they have fuel that they can use for their farming and for the ambulance and that kind of thing, but they also sell fuel for other people in the area. So it generates a little revenue for them. As far far as the animals, they have chickens, they have pigs, and a few cattle. Chickens are by far the best source of protein for them, and that's what they normally use. I cannot get them to grow a pig beyond about 60 pounds. That normally when the pig really starts to grow, but they always say they're short of feed, and that's when they want to butcher them. And I haven't convinced yet for one of them to get a pig to 240 pounds, but that's the way it is. One of the other things we did when we went with people, we didn't have a place to stay. They had an old guest house that was in poor condition, and they had one source of power coming into the house. When you took a shower, you could feel a little trickle of electricity. That always made everybody nervous. So we ended up, we had a couple that went with us that donated some money so we could get started on a guest house. And that has really helped when you go, we have a place that people can stay and prepare our own meals and be a part of it. And that's been most helpful. The guest house is used by a variety of people. World Vision also has a presence there, and they rent space different times for their ministry amongst the people there, so that worked out well. The last container we took with us, we use as a home for the caregiver. And it's one of the nicer homes on the compound. And it's just a container that we lined with wood and put a bathroom on one end and kitchen on the other, and it's a nice little place for them to live. You know, we find that God really provides in a variety of ways from many different sources. People that just care about other people, that give, and we're basically just a vehicle that back and forth and try to help the people there have a better quality of life, really help the compound with their ministry where they can reach people. One of the things is are you covered in the Waiting Mothers program? I'll let her tell you a little bit more about that, but that's another outreach of the compound. So go ahead from there, Jen.
All right. We've talked about resources, how God provides. God provides the resources. Now let's talk about how God loves people. He loves people of all ages, in all cultures, and in every nation. John 13, verse 34 says, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another." And so a few ways that we have seen God's love poured out is, again, he mentioned through the hospital, the Waiting Mothers program. What they do in Zimbabwe is when a mother that's pregnant is a high-risk pregnancy, they don't have the capability to get to the hospital real quick. So what they do is they ask a mother that's high risk to come and live at the hospital for her last 6 to 8 weeks. So she does. She either has to walk many miles to get there, or if she has $1, she can get on the public transport, and that will help her get there. Can you imagine, 8 months pregnant, walking for miles to get to the hospital? Then they have dorms where the waiting mothers live. So you get a cot, you bring a pail so that you have a little pail to wash your clothes in, and nowadays, lately, the last several times I've seen them come with just a little suitcase with a change of clothes. But many times they don't have a lot of food to bring, so the hospital provides food for them, and they provide a cot for them to lay on. Now, when you have 60 to 80 women living on the compound that are all pregnant, sometimes it gets full, those beds are full. So if a mama comes and the beds are all full, she sleeps on the floor under the cot. And as soon as the mama in the cot delivers, then that lady gets to move up and to sleep on the mattress. But they're a great community. They take very good care of each other. They do receive sadza once a day. They get a meal so that they're able to sustain themselves. And it's a very reasonable cost for the hospital, but it's a way that they are able to pour love into these waiting mothers. We bring with us crocheted hats. We have several women that are crocheting little baby hats. Some have sent receiving blankets. So when we go, we bring, this is all done by one lady, a good friend of ours from Wisconsin, and she just gave me a big bag to bring when we go tomorrow. And then we can go and give these newborns a gift, showing God's love to them.
Jan, I think the best day they had 18 babies one day.
So they go through those hats pretty fast. We never have enough for everybody, but
I think one other thing you want to mention is that they do get one meal a day, these waiting mothers, but they have to go to chapel.
yes,
And
yes.
that's the way they hear.
The
Now,
gospel.
some of them are Muslim background, a variety of backgrounds, but they're all treated the same. But they have to go to chapels and then go have breakfast.
So they come walking up the hill and meet in chapel. They sing and worship. Some of their own women that are Christian people will give a devotional or a testimony, and they'll worship together, and that's where they hear about Jesus. And then they can go have their meal.
Then they have boiled egg or something.
No, not always, not anymore. Just the sadza. They'll put peanut butter in the sadza to give them the protein. Sometimes they'll do that. Here's a little video of them giving thanks to God, thanking us for the love that is shown to them and God's love for them. This is a video. The two women doing the dancing are the two that work with these women, and they are big dancers.
Can you see why Diane enjoyed that?
We love those women. Another way that we see love shown is through Days for Girls International. There are people that make these for us, and then we bring them over. You'll see samples on the table back here, but they're kits for young girls who are starting their menstrual cycle. In Zimbabwe, they do not have disposable items like we're used to using here in this country. So a young girl can't go to school for days. And if you get one of these kits, they're disposable, or they're not disposable, so they can reuse. They can teach them how to wash them, dry them in the sun, and they can reuse them. They can go back to school, and they don't have to be out of school. Otherwise, all they have are rags that they use. And so this has been a huge blessing to the high school girls that can receive a kit and be able to use a Days for Girls kit so they can attend school. There's another way too that love is shown through the school, and that's through special needs students. The mission saw so many in the area around them. The students that are handicapped, they're blind or they're deaf. Many times they're left at home and not educated. They're just not taken care of very well. And so the mission has received some sponsors to help pay for school fees. So at grade 3, they can come. The boy that you see on this side, he's a blind boy that started school, grade 3, totally blind. His colleagues in school, his friends, helped him to be able to maneuver, to get around. He uses the Braille machine. He was the #1 person in his class. Very brilliant young man. And he has now graduated, and he's gone to a school for the blind. But it's amazing how the mission has really reached out to these young people that have disabilities and taken care of them, provided education for them. So he loves people of all ages in every culture. And that's a challenge for us, to also care for people in every culture around us. Let's go on with how he guides. He provides the resources, he loves people of all ages and cultures, and he guides through his word. Psalm 119, 105 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." We discovered that they lack curriculum for teaching God's word. In our culture, we can Google it and come up with a Bible study, or we can go to a Christian bookstore and order Sunday school material. They don't have that. So since 2014, we have been working with Community Bible Study, which is a global organization, and bringing in-depth Bible study for adults for them to use and start Sunday school classes for adults. Most of them meet on Sundays, some meet other times of the week. They always have a need for Bibles. Sometimes you'll see people sitting doing the lesson. Here we were training leaders to lead the Bible study in their community. They brought together a lot of leaders. We trained the leaders so they could go back home and lead the study. But there's always a need for Bibles. They many times have to share Bibles. Sometimes they don't have the money to print the lesson, so they'll share the lesson. Or the leader of the class will give it verbally, and then people can answer the questions orally. It's a discipleship tool where they're inviting people to their churches to study God's word, so they can go deeper in understanding God's word, to help them to discern what's truth and what's not. Because we all hear things from other sources. And if you're not grounded in God's word, it's hard to discern what is true and in alignment with God's word. So God has guided through his word. And it's a challenge for us. Are we daily opening his word so that we too can be grounded firmly in God's word to discern what's truth and what is not? How great is our God? He provides through resources. He loves people. He guides through his word. Do you know God and his greatness? And how can you share the greatness of God with other people around you? Just like in Zimbabwe, they're trying to reach out to people around them. We can all pray for our eyes to be open, to see where God is working, because he's working here in this community as well. We need our eyes open to see where we can come alongside where God is already working and join him in his work.